You ever have something that just sticks in your head for the longest time, and no matter how many times you attempt to make sense of it, it just doesn't make any sense at all? Because this is the sort of thing that I have questions about with certain things, and I'm going to be talking about some of these things actually, which don't make sense to me. Maybe on paper they would, but in actual practice and execution, it just does not work or no longer works. So I'm going to go ahead and delve into some of these things. I'm going to go and talk about 10 of them. This first thing is going to be talking about opinions. It doesn't make sense to me how, when you have an opinion nowadays, you can get canceled, you can get in trouble by other people. It's just seen as a crime to have an opinion nowadays. But there's something that doesn't make sense to me either when it comes to opinions. They're opinions, they're not facts. Opinions and facts are two different things. I don't know if they teach that anymore in school or not, but they told you the difference between what a fact was and what an opinion was. But nowadays, you don't have that. It's offensive, and you don't really have this whole aspect of agree to disagree. You can't have it anymore. It's nearly impossible when it comes to that whole idea and practice of it because it never works out. You're going to be seen as a villain in someone's book for having an opinion that does not necessarily agree with theirs 100%. And that's just the way it is. More importantly, just know that it's not just freedom of speech, but it's also the fact that it doesn't even go that deep. And it shouldn't go that deep. You shouldn't have to worry about getting killed over an opinion or being silenced by people over an opinion or worry about the state of your friendship or relationship with someone because of an opinion. You should be able to respect it and you should be able to have a mutual agreement to disagree and still be on good terms regardless of it all. But, you know, it's hard to be able to have those sort of things cooperate on both sides at the end of the day, especially in a day and age where having one is seen as a crime. This next thing is going to be something that you don't really see much anymore, and even if it is still done in practice, it's hardly even seen or even active like it used to be, and that's just 24-hour places. Now, there used to be a point in time where places were open 24/7 and you were able to go in any time of the day because it was 24/7, right? Now, nowadays, you don't really have places that even stay open till midnight. If you do, if you do have anything that stays open past midnight, maybe 1 a.m., maybe 2 a.m., but anything past that feels rare and rare. Now, the thing that I don't understand when it comes to this is that a few places that I do know that are 24/7 are just employees only. And if it's not anything that's employees only, it's just your local Waffle House. But even then, it's Waffle House. You can't. It used to be a different experience before compared to how it is now, post pandemic, and really the nightlife in general. The nightlife in general used to have so much potential, and it had a whole culture around it, and it was completely different when it came to your diurnal lifestyle and your nocturnal lifestyle. And the thing was, they were two sides of the same coin. And the best way I could put it is like Batman and Bruce Wayne with the Bat and the Man. That's pretty much the same context when it comes to the day lifestyle and the night lifestyle. But nowadays, nothing is really available, yet alone there's not even anything to do at night anymore. They took something that was very, very valuable for a lot of people to have this way to celebrate and have free time to spend after getting through maybe a shitty work week. There was something to celebrate when it came to the nighttime, whether it was through personal trials or being able to get something done that you wanted to get done, or even something as simple as just having the weekend to look forward to. But I do remember that family members and even roommates of mine, whenever I was in college, had mentioned about the things that they would do during the nighttime, whether it was go clubbing, go out, because you were able to go out and it not be closed so early, like barely even past midnight. Same with eating. A lot of places closed early. I remember the dining halls at my college used to be open 24/7, but because of the pandemic and everything, people just basically wanted to use that as an excuse to not even bring back the whole night culture and nightlife. But there was a whole culture with it. There was a whole completely different world out there that used to be offered for people to explore and experience. But you just had to be there to understand it. Because even I remember before I was even in college, just having this aspect of the nightlife that made it really fun and worthwhile to do. And I wasn't even in college doing any of the partying bullshit or, going out to the bars or whatever it was. And this was just like my teenage years where I was still doing stuff at night that was pretty fun. And I was actually able to go out and not have to worry about this whole curfew that the world put on the whole nightlife. But anyways, we're gonna be moving on to the next thing. These next two things could be seen as their own separate entities, but at the same time, they do have a relation that overlaps and even share a lot of similarities one way or another. But I'm gonna include them as two different things for the sake of this video. This next one is routine. Simple as that. Having the exact same daily routine every single day of the week, no differences or adjustments made for it. It sounds miserable. I've tried doing routines before. I get the idea of a routine, but the execution and practice of it is just mentally deranging. It is maddening. Like, I've gone crazy over routine. Even keeping it in the back of my head for the longest time, way before I even got into college, even as early as like middle school, of people having the same exact routine and no differences made to it whatsoever. And it really just feels mindless. It feels like NPC programming in my eyes with having routine, and you always stick through and through with it every single time regardless. I could not imagine doing such a thing. It's very hard for me to interpret that as something that people can just comfortably do and enjoy doing. And the thing is, too, I've looked at this through a bird's eye view. I don't even understand how my parents and grandparents, you just work the same job with the exact same schedule, if they happen to have the same schedule, years on end, years on years on years. I don't see how people could work at places like a Walmart where they have the exact same routine every single day, doing the same exact thing. I've worked jobs before that were the exact same routine based thing, and it took a toll on me. It was very difficult. It was very difficult for me to even be able to find something to break away from it. And even if I did find something to break away from it, or found something that broke away from it, it was still hard on me mentally for the simple fact that I don't like having to feel like I am being controlled by some sort of otherworld entity that is dictating my mindless, redundant actions, to say the least. That's the easiest way I can put it. I don't want to feel like an NPC when it comes to this sort of thing. And that's why I feel like jobs nowadays really kind of have that whole aspect way more imprinted into the ground and, into people's minds, with that being the case, which this also is going into the part two or second reasoning of 9 to 5 jobs in general. To make things simple, I don't understand how 9 to 5 jobs are still a common practice in this day and age. Technology's made things easier and has saved a lot of time when it comes to work proficiency. And the thing is, too, you used to work 9 to 5 jobs because there was limited sources of technology, and, obviously you would have to make sure everything is up to date through more physical matters rather than everything being made digitally. But the thing is, too, the 9 to 5 does not work anymore in this day and age. We, as human beings, have too much shit going on to even be able to have a 9 to 5 be a thing. I remember in middle school, elementary school, high school, all my years throughout the 3 primary schools that you have to go through, that it's exhausting. 5 days a week, 2 days off. But let's be real here. You don't have 2 days off. You have one actual day off. Because Friday is the day that you get ready for the weekend to look forward to. Saturday is the day that you actually legitimately have off a whole 24 hours with nothing going on. And Sunday is the day that you dread and you are depressed because you have that mental aspect ingrained in your head that lingers of having to go back and do all the shit that you did all over again. It's not a 2-day weekend. 9 to 5s don't work anymore. We are past that. But the thing is, people don't want to adapt. And that's the thing. People want to have all these changes in the world go on, but they still want to keep things in their roots as if we are still living in the 20th century, when that is far from the case. We are over a quarter through this new day and age, this new century. That means we are over 25 years into this new year, and we're still doing 9 to 5s as a common fucking thing. Make it make sense. I'd sure as hell be surprised if 9 to 5s are still a thing 25 years down the road, because why the fuck would they even be whenever we are far past that, especially with the advancement of everything going on? And it's funny because, all these changes, nobody wants to change the work life and the work culture from 9 to 5s to something that's actually more reasonable for everybody's sake, everybody's mental health, and a whole plethora of other reasons. In addition to things being, you know, more consistent and reliable for people's mental health, tell me why the hell everything has to have an app nowadays. I remember having to go to a restaurant and just sitting down, and you don't even have an actual menu. They have a physical paper of the menu with a QR code on it. A fucking QR code of all things, when they could have just had it all written down on the menu itself that they hand you. Tell me why we're taking all these extra steps that are really unnecessary and really just make it more difficult to do anything and everything as simple as getting something to eat, printing something on paper. I know there's apps where you have to have an app just to even be able to use a damn printer nowadays. Why? There's apps that you need to have to even be able to access these modern day cars. I remember seeing modern day cars have these apps or subscription based things where if you want to use the heaters, you're gonna have to get an app for it. They made the fucking heaters in there. They made heaters in there that you have to pay for or have an app to be able to control. Why? All this stuff is unnecessary. There's no reason that there needs to be an app for anything and everything that you do nowadays. There's a reason why people have been taking a break from all this technology stuff. There's a reason why I know I just stopped with all the social media crap and, trying to use technology as much people want to use it nowadays for. Speaking of social media, funny enough, that's going to be my next thing that really doesn't make sense to me when it comes to social media. And that's just people posting everything they do on social media. Um, I've seen people who will have a book. They take a photo of their book. Maybe you get the picture that they're reading a book, but in reality, are they even reading the book? They took a photo of the book. They probably didn't even get through the first page. I remember through a personal story of mine where I was out in the city with some friends and my cousin, and homegirl was on her phone the whole time, just trying to get the perfect video, trying to get the perfect 10-second at the most video, and kept on retaking. Me and my two other buddies were just sitting at the bar, listening to the music, looking at the scenery. They had some drinks. I had a drink. I was just observing, people watching, really, because I was just kind of living in the moment. And every single time, I remember seeing a homegirl just on her phone trying to get a video recording, just the perfect video. Kept on retaking. It was exhausting. I was getting secondhand embarrassment and secondhand exhaustion from it, because I'm like, why is it that important that you are showing people what you are doing? It's not that deep. I know I said this earlier about the whole opinion thing. It's the same thing with what you're doing online. You see people all the time who are constantly posting on social media, acting like everything is, sunshine and golden glory. But in reality, it's just like, it's just really an obsession. It's just putting on an act that's not really the case. I remember the last bit of time I had social media, like the last few months that I did have social media, I maybe made one post, and that was like one post a year. And the thing was, it was a compilation of like different things I did throughout that whole year. And that's usually what I found worked best for me. I'll take a photo of something just to be able to remember and have as like a moment. But at the same time, I'm not going to be on my phone the whole time. I'm going to be living in the moment instead of just, chronically online posting as if I am living in the moment. You're basically going through a simulation. So going on to number 7, it's going to be people in their 20s having kids and starting families. I understand before you used to be able to do that, and it was a lot more common that you would be in your 20s and, you were able to start a family. You were able to start a family, live pretty reasonable, and not really have to worry about things being overwhelming for you as badly at all. Nowadays, you can't really have that be the case. It's very difficult for everybody. People in my generations, even generations before me, are struggling with a lot of things now compared to how it was whenever they were our age. And it's interesting for the simple fact that it's not just us, it's not just Gen Z, it's generations prior to it that are finally starting to experience these things, yet alone the consequences that follow from the previous generations finally eating up on them. I just don't understand how someone can be comfortable in their 20s and starting a family in some pretty rough, struggling times, way more than they used to be. And that's really the big thing I don't get with that whole idea of it. I feel like it just throws away a lot of opportunities that you could have had in your 20s, especially whenever people mention before your 20s are a very enlightening time. I know through my experience so far in my 20s, I'm only 24, but I know so far during my 20s, I've had some very humbling and enlightening moments that I would not have expected to have at all in all the changes that I have made throughout my 20s so far. And I only hope that I'll be able to experience more of that stuff. I just want to add an extra thing too, because during college, I had the opportunity to get a dog again, but I never did for the simple fact that I kept this acknowledgement in my mind that I can barely even keep myself fed when it came to my life at college. How am I going to be able to keep another living being fed and be able to have stability? And this is just with a dog that I could have had. And I feel like that same thing can be applied to people having children because it's just if you're struggling and it's hard to be able to keep yourself stable and keep yourself fed, how do you expect to be able to have another life form that is your own flesh and blood be able to have that sort of nourishment and stability? The eighth thing that doesn't make sense to me is college equaling success whenever this whole thing is not necessarily the case. This old school mindset got us brainwashed in so many people. This includes me too. I was brainwashed into believing that was the case at one point for the longest time as well, until I actually got to college. But just because you go to college doesn't mean that you are guaranteed success. Maybe before, but at the same time, you having a college degree does give you better odds of success because you have that degree. But in my own eyes, and how I view it, college is that college just let people know that you know how to listen. And the other thing with college too is that 90 to 95% of people who get a degree don't even work and use the degree that they went to school for. The other neat thing about these degrees too is that if it is a very, very common degree, it's just going to be less valuable when it comes to its actual real world value. And you can see the same thing with just a lot of college degrees in general, or the fact that they are getting replaced or even taken away as being a, actual degree that you can use and be a thing, whether it's AI or not many people picking it up as a degree, or it just being seen is useless or not, or just being interpreted and combined into another degree. There's plenty of things that colleges are able to just do and get away with, regardless of how bad it may fuck people over, and regardless of all the time that people may spend trying to get whatever degree it is that they're wanting to get. The ninth thing that I don't really understand, nor does it make any sense to me, is people being comfortable, too comfortable to say the least, because how are you going to be able to have changes when you're being stagnant? I don't understand how people can have comfortable lives all the time. I understand being comfortable and wanting to feel comfortable, but being that way for too long feels like there's more problems than there are any good benefits from it. And that's the thing too. You don't have change through stagnation. You have change by adapting and getting used to everything that is around and adjusting to all those said things to become the best version of yourself. And people have so much potential in whatever it is that you may want to have potential in. Either they don't realize it, or they're just comfortable with where they are and not wanting to try to make the proper engagement and initiation to have those changes happen. I've been through this scenario myself, and I'm speaking from experience. But I remember during college at one point, I was very socially inept. Don't get me wrong, I'm still a shy person and whatnot, but I'm not afraid to get out of my comfort zone to talk to people if it ever came down to it. But at the same time, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go out of my way and go the extra mile in a means that, makes it inauthentic, to say the least. I want to be able to stay true to myself and be able to break out of that shell by not being comfortable. And whether it works in your favor or doesn't, you still did something that you didn't think that you would do, and you broke out of that comfort zone. When it comes to the last thing with things that doesn't make sense to me, it would be having everything figured out. Regardless of what you may believe or what people tell you, you're not going to have everything figured out. It doesn't matter how old you are. And I don't understand how people expect you to have everything figured out, more importantly, because in a world that is constantly changing, how are you supposed to be able to know what there is to plan ahead? How are you supposed to be able to predict the unknown, more importantly? Because a lot of shit comes up and you don't know how to approach it. You don't know how to exactly have any sort of contingency plans to countermeasure it. You're constantly going to be figuring things out your whole entire life. It doesn't matter how old you are. Everybody is figuring something out one way or another, regardless of their age. And with that, that's going to be 10 things that I don't understand, nor does it make sense. Thank you for your time, and I hope you take care